We're back with Grazel one more time, and today we're talking about something that could be quite personal, but we're talking about how ADHD affects intimacy. So, how does that work in romantic relationships, Grazel?
Yes, I think I've mentioned this a while back that unmanaged ADHD traits can definitely affect relationship satisfaction. Again, it's important that it's not intentional, but the impact of the unmanaged traits can still affect the feelings of happiness of both partners in the relationship. So it's important to manage these traits. The inattentiveness traits can cause a lot of communication issues, emotional issues. It can cause emotional disconnection, not understanding each other, fueling the negative cycle over and over again, and getting stuck. Um, I can get, and of course, the non-ADHD partner's personalization of the unmanaged traits definitely fuels the cycle as well.
Hmm. And how does ADHD influence a partner's ability to actually be present and kind of available, emotionally available during those intimate moments?
So someone with ADHD, they have difficulty staying focused, not because they don't want to focus on you. You are important to them. They love you. They care about you. It's more about the way the brain works. So that's really important to understand is that the ADHD brain is not, is busy.
Hmm.
So if you think of tab, like what is it? An internet tab that we're open, like a Safari or,
Yeah, yeah,
you
internet browser.
there you go. Thank you. A browser, internet browser. Um, an ADHD brain has like 100 browsers open
Hmm.
and on their screen.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is important to the brain, even if they're not important at all, like within the hierarchy of priority list.
Hmm.
The brain is not automatically categorizing each of those tabs in the level of its importance. Everything is important and it has given the same level of arousal. So the brain just works that way. So if there's like, let's say I have ADHD and Scott, let's just say you're my partner and you're talking to me about something really important. But then over here, I hear something like maybe a bark of a dog. Now I can look at that because the brain is being captured by that noise. And now that noise, and then I'm now distracted by both.
Hmm.
Still with you, but now my brain has that other open tab that I'm giving the same level of arousal, but doesn't necessarily mean I'm completely forgetting about you. So you can see how my presence, my emotional presence, can be affected. You may seem that I'm not as focused anymore,
Hmm.
but I still am.
Yeah, but in that example, in to my perspective, it looks like you're not paying attention to me anymore, and I'm trying to say something that's really vulnerable for me to say, or trying to engage with you in a really intimate way, and it looks
Yeah.
like you're not interested in the slightest.
Yeah,
That
and
hurts.
ADHD brains, they also have difficulty looking someone in the eyes. So you could be telling me something really vulnerable, and I'm like, but that really helps me listen. For them, looking away is soothing and they can stay focused, or they have to fidget. And you
Mhm.
might think that fidgeting is just like, I'm not paying attention to you. No, it's actually what helps their brain be more focused.
Yeah, and this is it's such an interesting concept to get your head around in terms of just how differently people's brains work.
Yeah,
And how what would be completely distracting for someone else actually helps another person focus more,
exactly.
and then knowing exactly what's going on between each other, so that you don't feel unnecessary hurt.
Yes. Yeah. And, like, let's say that was distracting to you, like me not looking at you, looking away and looking like this while you're talking. Of course, I can understand. But it is my responsibility as an ADHDer, right? Like to tell you, hey, I'm here with you. I'm listening to something that you're saying, and I know it's really vulnerable, but just know that I need to look away for me to be able to focus. And it's not about me not paying attention to you. Now, the ADHDer will learn that in therapy. That's why it's important for them to go to therapy so they can have the language
Mm-hmm.
to express to their partner, I'm here with you emotionally. I just have different ways of showing that. But without that, it's going to be an emotional disconnection.
Yeah, and this it's just going to contribute to more reactivity on both sides probably, and then that negative cycle just gets worse and worse and worse.
Absolutely.
What about in terms of physical intimacy? How might those kind of sensory needs and distraction things show up?
Absolutely. Sometimes, being touched while they're being intimate sexually can be, too much in the beginning. Maybe a need, a caressing may need to be talked about and when it needs to show up in the level of physical intimacy and sexual intimacy. So there's definitely different ways of showing up to your partner in the room. Sometimes, the lighting needs to be very dim, or sometimes the lighting needs to be bright, or it has to be a different color. And that's important too, to dysregulate to regulate the nervous system. So they're not having a sensory overload. Scents are very important too. A fabric can create changes in the way that they present with touch and affection.
Hmm.
And you may feel like you might be wearing wool, or like let's say you're wearing a wool sweater, and then you rub on your partner who has sensory sensitivity with fabric. And they may turn away from you, and you may personalize that and think that you're being ignored or rejected and not wanted. But it's all about sensory,
Yeah,
right? But the language and expression of that is really important.
yeah. I'd actually never considered kind of things like the color of the lighting being a potential issue in that kind of scenario. That's really interesting.
Oh,
Um,
it's everything is so important. But when you think about it, we do this naturally, right? Like when we're dating someone in the very beginning, we pay attention to the lighting, we pay attention to the scent of the room, we pay attention to the fabric. But how come it disappears when you're dating someone who's neurodivergent?
hmm, that's true. So when you get stuck in that negative cycle and one person's feeling rejected and the other person's thinking, no, I'm not rejecting you. It's not. It's just the way my head works. I can't fix it. And then you kind of get into those arguments and you get into those negative cycles. What happens to the intimacy in the relationship? Does it tend to just completely vanish?
Yes, some sadly, at times if the neurodiverse couples are not getting the help that they need, or they've tried to find someone to help them, but it wasn't helpful. Sometimes they give up on asking for needs too, so the negative cycle can get even more solidified, and their intimacy just end up, like you said, vanishing, and they just end up being emotionally disconnected even more.
Hmm.
And it could lead to divorce or breakups, and sometimes it's not salvageable.
Yeah. And that's such a shame when it is something that absolutely is salvageable if you can get to therapy in time.
In
Yeah.
time, right? And finding the right therapist that is able to look at you and your partner in a holistic way.
Yeah. So with that in mind, how can therapy help in that situation where you've got the negative cycle just going round and round and round? How do you break that?
I think it's really important to do the assessment first in the beginning of the work with a neurodiverse couples is really understanding, do they know what fuels their negative cycle? Do they know if there's someone neurodivergent um, in the relationship? If they do know, then what skills have they done or adaptations or relationship building skills do they have in order to make sure that their cycle doesn't get amplified or escalated? So really looking at what resources they have, what do they know, and depending on their answer, then that's when the therapists need to start. So if they don't know anything yet about their relationship and their cycle, then there's going to be a lot of psychoeducation about the cycle and probably a lot of assessment to see whether there's actually neurodivergence present. And a lot of teaching in the beginning. And then we move into working on the attachment, right? But if they already know that there's neurodivergence present, then we can just kind of go in, see what they know, piggyback from where they are, and then move forward and deepening their understanding of each other and their attachment.
Mm. Yeah. And then just having those conversations in the therapy room starts to break down that negative cycle and starts to bring them closer together. I know you've spoken to before about how they move closer together on the couch as they go through sessions, which is just such a lovely image.
It's a lovely image,
Um, but yeah, just such an interesting topic to dive into, just the whole neurodivergent thing. So
Yeah.
thanks again for your time, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, Scott.